Welcome to our listeners from 189 countries worldwide. We're so happy to have you today, and we have got some important stuff to cover. All right, this is a scary time in the world, no question about it. Are we on the verge of World War III? Hopefully not. Are we on the verge of crazy Putin using a nuke? Hopefully not. But remember, in the world of warfare, there are many new weapons that are incredibly powerful, and they're non-nuclear. And there are also tactical nukes. So this is pretty scary stuff. I mean, I so wish NATO or the UN would do a no-fly zone over Ukraine, because it's just odd that you gotta really wonder what's going on. I mean, is Russia really this bad at logistics? Or is it the Russian troops that are considering desertion? Hopefully there will be a lot of deserters. Or are they self-sabotaging? You know, there have been stories about that, putting holes in their own fuel tanks to slow the convoy. But it's amazing that we haven't really seen much Russian air power. I mean, I don't know. What do you think? Leave a comment below and tell me what you think about this, because I just don't know what to make of this. I have spent dozens and dozens of hours reading and watching things and studying this absolutely horrific events as they unfold. But there's a lot of mysteries, a lot of things that just don't really make any sense. And I really wonder what's going on. Okay, let's get into some things from our friends at the Wall Street Journal. Some interesting reports I want to share with you and comment before we get to part 2 of Harry Dent today. So first off, the Federal Reserve, right? Good old Jerome Powell, said that the Ukraine war is creating risk of higher inflation. Well, duh. I mean, I don't think that's a risk. I think that's a certainty. But he also might be using that as a bit of an excuse, right? Looking to use that as a scapegoat for his own promiscuity. Yeah, there's a word for you. In terms of his loose money policies, monetary policies, right? And now he'll have an excuse to back up his, well, inflation was transitory, but then Ukraine happened, right? So who knows? It's like three-dimensional chess, conspiracy theories. Nobody really knows the reality, right? But certainly, I think this is very much an inflationary pressure situation. You know, when you've got one of the world's top energy producers, Russia, of course, and you've got one of the biggest, or the biggest wheat producer, Ukraine. I mean, it's just a huge deal. This is bad, bad, bad for all concerns about inflation, no question about it. And you've got just the war machine itself that destroys things, that creates more demand on all of the materials needed to wage war and all of the materials needed to rebuild after war. Just think how many construction materials will be needed to rebuild Ukraine. Hopefully it's not being rebuilt by the Russians. Well, hopefully the Russians are paying for it, but hopefully it's not under their control after this all ends. It's under the control of the Ukrainian people. But we will see how this all pans out. It's very upsetting, very depressing, to say the least. But Venezuela, this is interesting. Venezuela is pushing to lift U.S. sanctions. You know, Venezuela's got tons of energy, tons of oil, right? And it might not be a bad idea to lift those sanctions. They haven't worked very well, sadly, but then it could ease the oil prices. You've all been to the gas stations and you've seen, especially if you live in the Socialist Republic of California, which will probably, as I predicted, have $7 a gallon gasoline very soon, if not higher. You know, Brandon, let's go, Brandon. You could open the whole Keystone Pipeline project again. You could ease up on your attacks on oil companies. The U.S. can produce all the oil we need and then some right here at home, but you're an idiot. So, I mean, can you believe in these trying times we have Joe Biden and Kamala Harris running the free world? It's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable. The last standing tyrannical dictatorship in Europe, Belarus, place I've always wanted to visit, but have refrained in my visit of 87 countries. I've been to Ukraine twice, been all over Eastern Europe, but I always skip Belarus because I'm afraid to go there, right? So hopefully that regime will fall too, but we'll see. Their sovereign bonds have collapsed following US and EU sanctions. Sovereign bonds backed by Belarus collapsed over the past week due to the nation's entanglement with Russia. Great. Maybe their population will turn against their own government, and we will see the freedom-loving people take over Russia and Belarus and end these tyrannical dictators. That's what has to happen. Hopefully it'll happen. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has driven wheat prices to near record levels. So food inflation, as if it wasn't already bad enough, is going to get a lot worse. The most traded wheat contract on the Chicago Board of Trade gained 7.1%, went up to $11.34 a bushel early Thursday, hitting the exchange's limits for how much the price can move in a session for the third straight day. So they're setting limits, about these limits in exchanges for flash crashes and so forth. If the price goes up too much, they halt it, they limit it. If the price goes down too much, they limit it too. So it's hit the limit for 3 straight days. Russian corporate bond prices, not just Belarus, but Russian bonds, have plummeted as much as 70% since the country invaded Ukraine, triggering US and European sanctions that cut the country off from much of the international financial system. Unlike most countries with debt at distressed prices, Russia enjoys current account surpluses, and its largest companies are cash rich. We'll see how long they can hold out with that. We will see. But yeah, this is just a very dire situation for sure. Investors are raising bets that the invasion of Ukraine and sanctions on Russia will further fuel a hot commodities rally. And I think that's a pretty good bet. I would take that bet. Remember, as real estate investors, we're already in on that bet because we engage in what I've taught you about over the years called packaged commodities investing or assembled commodities investing. We own lots of commodities. We own lots of energy. That energy is wrapped up in the properties we own. Because when energy prices go up, when lumber prices go up, when iron and steel prices go up, when copper prices go up, we're making money, folks. We're already invested in all of these things through our simple ownership in high quality income properties in diverse markets, following my 10 commandments of successful investing. If you want to know more about those, my core content that I created back in 2004, and boy, they have fared rather well. They've stood the test of time very nicely. Go to jasonhartman.com, type in 10 commandments on the little search engine there at jasonhartman.com, and you'll find all kinds of great podcast episodes and YouTube videos about those 10 commandments. You really want to be following that core content. So aluminum, or some say aluminium, my friend from Australia, the first time I heard her ever say aluminium, I thought, huh? What is that? But I just want to tell you an interesting story that you might have heard about aluminium. I call it aluminum. And that is Napoleon. Good old Napoleon from era gone by. He would invite guests over for dinner. And when they would come to dinner, they got to eat using the aluminum utensils. Because at the time, and this just shows you how things change, because at that time in history, aluminum was so valuable. It was this incredible precious metal. And Napoleon's servants, they ate using the gold utensils because that was for the second class people. The aluminum was for the guests of honor. Isn't it funny how things change through manufacturing? And think about how the value of diamonds, of rare earth elements of all sorts, and of gold and silver and platinum and palladium, the precious metals, may change in the future as technology changes everything. Now, what are those technologies? Well, of course, there's the possibility to make this stuff in labs. You can make diamonds in labs today, right? And that lessens the value and demand for natural diamonds because they are real diamonds. They're just made faster than nature makes them, right? They're actual diamonds. They're not cubic zirconia. They're not glass. They are real diamonds. They're just made in a lab. I mean, look, think about it. Think about the incredible things that are going on, and some of them scary, with genetic engineering, test tube babies, right? Are you going to call that a person made in a lab? Right? It's a real person. So same idea with diamonds. And then also with the future of mining asteroids. And that future is coming pretty fast. So we'll see how it all turns out. The things that were once considered precious and valuable can change over time with changes in technology. Obviously, aluminum did that. Aluminum became mass marketed, mass manufactured. So it was dramatically and is dramatically less valuable than gold. But at the time, aluminum was this super valuable thing, right? Okay, we talked about that. Aluminum is at the highest. Aluminum and nickel have jumped to their highest level in over a decade. Federal Reserve Chair Jay Powell said Wednesday it would propose a rate increase of 0.25%. Now, they did do that, by the way. And the question is, compared to what? See, I predicted as soon as this invasion broke out that we would see an easing of the hawkish stance from the Federal Reserve on its monetary policy, and it would loosen, or it would tighten more slowly than was projected. And that has come true. But I think they're going to have to reverse course, or at least just not do any more increases, because the fear of global recession is far too great with all of this terrible stuff that's going on in Ukraine and the threat of it happening with Taiwan. Now, when you heard Peter Zeihan, the geopolitical expert, on last week, that was a great interview with him. By the way, if you didn't catch it, be sure you check out my interview with possibly the foremost geopolitical expert in the world, or at least one of them, Peter Zeihan. Check it out. We had that for you last week. Now, he didn't think much of this idea that a lot of people have floated about the Russia-Ukraine invasion sort of giving license to China to take Taiwan. I am more concerned about it than he is, but we will see. We will see. He's of course the expert. I'm just an armchair quarterback, but we'll see how that works out. Hopefully, it will not happen. But there is certainly a big danger of recession. So I think the Fed is going to have to loosen all of its tightening stances, whether it be asset purchases, tapering of any sort, interest rates, whatever, QE. They're just going to have to ease up and slow down on that. I think it's just going to be required, and it's a foregone conclusion. So we'll see. But again, inflationary pressure is great. So they're in a tough spot. I mean, the Fed is in a very, very difficult situation right now. Okay, before we get to Harry Dent, our guest today, part 2, I want to remind you that we have our Amazon gift card giveaways. These are easy to win, folks. It's not like zillions of people enter, and this is not a contest. It's just a little raffle. So all you have to do to win a $50 gift card, we give away 2 of these per week until further notice, is go on YouTube and comment on our videos, like them, comment on them, and we will randomly pick commenters. So the more comments you make, the greater your chances of winning. And again, there's not a lot of people commenting, so your odds are pretty darn good. Then we give another gift card away, a second $50 gift card, to anyone who wrote a review on Apple Podcast, formerly iTunes. So go on Apple Podcast, write a review, and you can win a $50 gift card.